Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic hypersonic.
Positronic hypersonic.
Positronic hypersonic.
I'm Barry P. Cook, and I'm here to talk to you about the season 5 premiere of The Boys. It was a 2-episode premiere, and the first episode was called 15 Inches of Sheer Dynamite. And the episode starts at the Vought International Annual Meeting of Shareholders as Homelander speaks to his supporters during a presentation. Backstage, Annie, aka Starlight, disguised as a firecracker cheerleader type character, sneaks into a control room where she's caught by Black Noir 2, whom she quickly overpowers as the tech person she was with uploads the video of Homelander on board the crash of Flight 37, leaving its passengers to die. The video plays at the conference, shocking the audience and causing Homelander to nearly snap and laser the whole crowd, only for Sister Sage to step in and calm him down. Then a series of TikTok videos play, including one by Sage that claims that the Flight 37 video was made using deepfakes and AI and so forth. At a press assembly at the White House, Ashley Barrett, now the soup-abled vice president, tells reporters that the video is all part of a Starlighter smear campaign. When asked by Chris Hayes, playing himself, about Homelander's internment camps, dubbed Freedom Camps, she denies their existence. At Vought Tower, Homeland berates Sage, telling her that posting memes mocking him should be a crime and that those who do so should be sent to the Freedom Camps. Sage warns Homelander that no matter how much power he amasses, he'll never be truly happy. The two concoct a plot they believe will finally draw Butcher and Annie out of hiding, involving leaking the impending public execution of Huey, Mother's Milk, and Frenchie. Meanwhile, at one of Homelander's freedom camps, Frenchie, Mother's Milk, and Huey are finding ways to hustle despite their imprisonment. Frenchie smuggles in drugs to fellow campers in exchange for food and money, with Huey serving as his lookout for potential spies in their midst. Mother's Milk makes his money by fighting other prisoners in the camp and betting on himself. The three watch as one of the guards, Love Sausage, the man with the gigantic love sausage, beats a prisoner with it. Meanwhile, Butcher arrives in England where he confronts his father, Sam. Upon noticing a trophy that his deceased brother won as a child, Butcher begins taunting his father before embracing him. He then proceeds to fatally stab him using his tentacles. While on the set of Firecracker's show Truth Bomb, Homelander notices the rapid heartbeat of the crew members, thinking that the people are now afraid of him. During the broadcast, Firecracker furthers the claims that the Flight 37 video was made using AI, using a doctored version of the video depicting Homelander with 7 fingers on one hand as evidence. We then learn that Kimiko has been hiding out in Manila in the Philippines, having broken out of custody after violently attacking multiple Vought guards. Butcher pays her a visit, and initially she attacks him, but stops when he tells her that Homelander is going to execute Frenchie. At the Freedom Camp, Huey talks with Ivy, a former FBSA employee whom he worked with under Newman, and talks to her about how, despite everything that's happened to him over the past several years, he's still holding out hope for the future. As they talk, they witness the telepathic soup Cindy using her powers to execute a prisoner trying to escape. Very gruesomely. At her hideout, Annie analyzes the Manosphere podcast hosted by the Deep and Black Noir 2, and she's interrupted by Butcher and Kimiko, whom she learns can now speak. Kimiko explains that therapy and lots of TikTok taught her how to speak over the course of the last year after she was deported back to the Philippines. Annie tells Butcher that she knows Homelander is laying a trap by announcing the execution of Huey, Mother's Milk, and Frenchie, but Butcher insists, saying it's now or never. She also calls out Butcher for only wanting to break Frenchie out so that he can work on perfecting the soup-killing virus. At the Freedom Camp, Huey, Mother's Milk, and Frenchie meet in their hideout spot underneath a bathroom at the camp, where they work on making Molotov cocktails. Huey tells them about the upcoming execution, and they all agree to escape the camp before anything happens. Annie shows Butcher and Kimiko a map of the camp and reveals that the only reason she hadn't saved Huey, Mother's Milk, and Frenchie so far was that she felt they were safer there, as opposed to constantly having to evade Homelander and his goons. Butcher tells Annie and Kimiko that he knows someone who'll be able to help them sneak into the camp unnoticed. At Vought Tower, Homelander has killed 2 of the crew members who were working at the Vought International Annual Meeting of Shareholders, and he calls in the Deep and Black Noir 2, berating them for letting Annie get away. He then walks back to his bedroom where he's been keeping Soldier Boy in his cryo chamber. Next, we get an interview of Ashley by Firecracker, during which we learn that Ashley is now married to the evangelical clergy soup Oh Father, a relationship set up by Sage for PR reasons. Sage pulls Ashley aside and tells her about Homelander's plan to detain all anti-Homelander meme posters and starlighters. Ashley stresses that they won't have enough camps, but will try her best as she ultimately wants to become the president and needs Homelander's approval. Butcher visits the Worm, a dirt-eating soup who spends most of his days writing spec scripts of popular television shows like Reacher. Butcher tells Worm that he needs him to dig a tunnel for him, but doesn't elaborate on the details, only telling him that it'll be a way of sticking it to Vought. Annie and Kimiko contact Reggie, the soup formerly known as A-Train, and admit that they need him to help rescue Huey, Frenchie, and Mother's Milk from the Freedom Camp. After briefly discussing God U student Marie Moreau, Reggie tells Annie that helping them will put his family in danger. He's not scared, but he needs to protect his brother and nephew. Annie doesn't push back, telling Reggie that she had to place her mother in hiding as well, and she understands his sentiment. While working on Molotov cocktails with Mother's Milk and Frenchie in their hiding spot, Huey retreats to the bunks to get more materials, only to find Homelander waiting for him, having killed other prisoners who were standing in his way. Reggie returns to his family in Brittany, France, where they've been hiding for the past year. Upon noticing movement in the water, Reggie tells his brother and nephew to hide, and lo and behold, the Deep arrives and attempts to interrogate and taunt him, but Reggie snaps back, mocking the aquatic soup for being in denial of his fear of Homelander. As Reggie leaves, the Deep threatens his family. Butcher, Annie, Kimiko, and Worm arrive on the outskirts of the camp, where Butcher tells Annie that she shouldn't feel guilty for not saving Huey earlier. Seeing what Butcher needed him for, Worm tries to refuse to help them further, but Annie threatens him, causing him to submit. Worm removes his pants, revealing that he has no equipment, and begins sucking up dirt quickly, digging a hole for the crew to crawl through. Having accomplished what Butcher needed him for, Worm leaves as the others make their way into the camp. Upon their arrival, they find that Homelander has already gotten to Huey, Mother's Milk, and Frenchie first, and has them tied up and gagged. Kimiko yells at Homelander to suck my fat dick, and in response, he lasers her in half. Because of her powers, she obviously survives. Homelander taunts Butcher, revealing that he knows about his powers. He further tells him, "You're the only one who has challenged me. There's a part of me that will be sad to see you go." Annie uses her powers to create a distraction outside, allowing Huey, Mother's Milk, Frenchie, and Kimiko to escape. Frenchie and Kimiko get to a hiding spot and passionately make out, as Butcher fights Cindy and Mother's Milk takes on Love Sausage. Annie swoops in and carries Frenchie and Kimiko to safety, planning to go back for more of her friends. While Mother's Milk is successfully able to strangle Love Sausage to death with his own love sausage, Butcher is stopped short of finishing off Cindy by Homelander. Huey tries to calm down Ivy, only for her to be lethally executed by Homelander, who then grabs Huey by the throat and calls out for Butcher. Suddenly having had a change of heart, Reggie runs in and uses his super speed to rescue Butcher, Huey, and Mother's Milk. Annie finally returns, with Huey berating her for leaving them. Now being pursued by Homelander, Reggie runs away at super speed and has a moment where he nearly runs through a woman walking down the street but quickly dodges her. But he trips while running through the woods thereafter, causing Homelander to catch up with him and put him in a chokehold. Bloodied, Reggie laughs at Homelander, telling him, "What was I so afraid of? You're bleeping nothing but an empty suit. You're a weak, sniveling loser." Angered, Homelander snaps Reggie's neck, killing him, and the episode cuts to credits. The second episode of the premiere was called Teenage Kicks, and it starts with the Vought-sponsored funeral for Reggie, complete with a gospel choir and a sermon by Oh Father, who frames Starlight for the murder, of course. Oh Father uses his sonic scream to move the audience, something that Homelander takes notice of. The boys now have claimed a new base of operations in an abandoned school in Erie, Pennsylvania. Dr. Samir Shah is being held at the base, with Butcher having forced him to create a new version of the virus. The plan is to test out the virus by injecting it into the body of a Teenage Kicks member, Rock Hard. After Reggie's funeral, Homelander manically talks to himself about how Reggie left him no choice and that no one truly understands him. Out of desperation, he awakens Soldier Boy from his cryo chamber. The boys wait outside the Kicks Club, Teenage Kicks' home base. Huey notices that Rockhard has not posted on his Instagram in over a year, but Frenchie notices in other recent Instagram reels that Rockhard's teammate, Countess Crow, is seen in the background bringing protein shakes down to the basement, presumably for Rockhard. Huey cuts off the internet in the Kicks Club, and the team heads down to the basement, where they find a severely overweight Rockhard who can now only talk through the use of a computer. Now fully reawakened, Soldier Boy is greeted by Homelander, who promises to forgive him for previously working alongside the boys if he finds Butcher and reports back to him. He additionally offers him the position of number 2 in the 7 before handing him his shield. Back in the Kicks Club, the boys realize that they won't be able to move Rockhard to another location to inject him with the virus. To make matters even more complicated, he overhears them talking about the virus and begins holding his breath. Butcher leaves the boys to figure out how to deal with Rockhard, asking Kimiko to come with him. However, Huey demands to go instead as he doesn't trust him, and Kimiko is more interested in making out with Frenchie anyway. Sage shows off her plan to triple Homelander's freedom camps to President Calhoun, Ashley, Deep, and Firecracker. When the camera gets closer to Ashley, we hear what we think is her inner monologue, telling her to call out the insanity of Sage's plan. Ashley then tells Sage that this plan could backfire easily, as this new plan will not only increase taxes but also turn away Vought's consumers. As Calhoun asks for immunity, Homelander enters the room with Soldier Boy, asking Calhoun to give him a full pardon. Frenchie and Annie stick with Rockhard, who begins producing lava, let's say, as Mother's Milk sneaks through the house and is caught by Countess Crow. Annie sees a news report about more raids and begins feeling guilty for not being there for her followers and not saving them from being killed. Frenchie realizes that Annie doesn't want to receive a cure from the virus, and she confirms this, saying, "If I follow them, it's the only thing that makes sense." Frenchie tries to talk sense into her, but as he does, Mother's Milk walks in with Countess Crow. Annie says that she needs to be killed alongside Rockhard. As Butcher, Huey, and Kimiko make their way back to the base, they pass by 2 other teenage Kick members, She-Line and Jetstreak, filming a video where they arrest a single mother in front of her son. Huey and Kimiko try to convince Butcher to allow them to step in and save her, but he rejects that, saying that they'll blow their cover. Sage meets with Homelander, questioning whether waking up Soldier Boy was a surprise and why he hasn't told him about the virus. Homelander suggests that it'd be better for Soldier Boy to catch the virus than any of them, to which Sage comments, "He's tactical." Butcher, Huey, and Kimiko arrive back at their base to take a vial of the virus from Samir, who warns them that it's incredibly fragile, and if it breaks, it could also kill regular people. As Frenchie and Annie try to cut through Rockhard, Mother's Milk talks with Countess Crow. While he initially tries to interrogate her, he realizes that she's been taking several prescriptions of antidepressants. He attempts to reason with her, telling her that she shouldn't be grinding herself so hard to work with people who truly do not care for her. Huey, Butcher, and Kimiko make their way back to the Kicks Club, and Soldier Boy attacks them, with the virus vial nearly shattering, but Huey is able to catch it. Huey and Kimiko make their escape and call Frenchie, Annie, and Mother's Milk, warning them that they've been caught. Butcher confronts Soldier Boy, with the latter accusing him of selling out. Butcher tells Soldier Boy about the virus, and the two fight. She-Line and Jetstreak notice the two, and Soldier Boy orders them to go after Huey and Kimiko. Mother's Milk tells Annie and Frenchie that they need to leave, but as soon as they leave, he begins to have second thoughts about leaving Countess Crow behind to die. As Kimiko fights She-Line, Jetstreak grabs Huey and flies up high with him, dropping him from the sky. Annie flies in and saves Huey, and he makes his way back to the basement with Soldier Boy and Jetstreak following him. Soldier Boy grabs the vial from Huey, but is startled to see that Jetstreak and Rockhard have already been infected. He turns around to see that Frenchie, wearing a gas mask, has already unleashed the virus in the basement. Jetstreak and Rockhard vomit black fluid and die, while Soldier Boy convulses, and Huey and Mother's Milk make their escape, quarantining the Kicks Club. As the boys get ready to leave, it's revealed that Mother's Milk had let Countess Crow escape, and she silently thanks him from a distance. After stressing to Sage her concerns about arresting meme posters, Ashley's inner monologue tells her that they need to talk. She gets into her car and takes off her wig, at which point it is revealed that the compound V she took in the season 4 finale gave her a psychic tumor on the back of her head, which looks like another face of her own, called Other Ashley. Other Ashley attempts to convince Ashley to defy Homelander, but she refuses. Samir tells the boys that humans are immune to the virus, and Frenchie privately tells Kimiko that they should run away and go someplace remote. Kimiko turns him down, saying that they have to stay, as a way of atoning for the lives they've taken. Huey tells Annie that he's not going to let her die and is going to continue to fight. Homelander arrives at the Kicks Club, panicking about Soldier Boy's supposed death. The Deep tries to lighten him up, but Homelander tells him it should have been you, ordering him to leave. The episode ends with Homelander walking away from Soldier Boy's corpse in a body bag, not noticing that said corpse sits up in said body bag as the credits roll. And that was the end of the second episode of the premiere. So I have really, really liked this show because it's absolutely debaucherous, both in its sexual perversity and the gore, and I just have really, really liked this show in the previous 4 seasons. It's no secret to anyone who's watched my reviews of Gen V that I like that show even better than The Boys, but I do like The Boys quite a bit, and I think season 5 is off to a good start. The Homelander character absolutely creeps me out. And when my wife and I had the opportunity to meet Anthony Starr, we told him this, and he, of course, laughed and said, well, yeah, that's kind of the point. So, yeah, he just creeps me out. Anyway, as I said, I think the season is off to a good start. You know, it's the final season, so they're going to have to wrap up a lot of things, and it's going to have to be a lot of monumental occurrences. And, you know, that could mean people we don't want to die. Already they killed A-Train. But, you know, I think that's also going to mean that a lot of bad guys get their comeuppance, and I'm here for it. The Deep is an asshole, so I want to see him get his comeuppance. Then you have people like Ashley and Firecracker and, you know, the president, who are all just, you know, constantly licking Homelander's balls. I mean, you know, on the one hand, you kind of can't blame them for it because they don't want to get lasered, but at the same time, you know, I don't know. Some things are, you know, worth taking a stand over, and if it means that you die, then that's what it means. So, you know, it's really sad that nobody except the boys is willing to do that. And I don't know. I guess we're fortunate that at least they are. But the people that didn't, I think, you know, they're going to get theirs. I hope. And it's funny because I find myself having those exact same thoughts every day about what's going on in this country every day, where the people around the maniac in charge of our country do not have the balls to step in and stop the insanity. And he doesn't even have laser eye powers. So it's going to be really satisfying to see it at least happen on the show, that these sycophantic ball licking madness, you know, enablers get theirs, because it's not going to happen in real life. On that note, I want to acknowledge that some people are claiming that this show is deliberately, you know, writing in events that have already happened in the real world in order to poke at the current administration. And that's just not true. You know, this season was written a while back, and a lot of the stuff that's been happening recently just has not made it into the season. So, you know, they can't really make that claim. But it's interesting, you know, that what you have in that case is like foreshadowing, right? Because they wrote it before some of these crazy things have started happening. Now the crazy things are happening. It's kind of like the same with Daredevil, what's been going on with Daredevil and the whole Kingpin thing. And I talked about that in a different video. But anyway, I'm going to be happy to see these people get their comeuppance. And, you know, I'm just loving the gore and the sexual debauchery and all of that stuff. But it isn't as though I can't criticize the show because, for one thing, to kind of nitpick a little bit, the scene where the Deep and Reggie, aka A-Train, are going at each other was very badly produced. I think they did a good job of shooting it. I think the actors were excellent. I think it probably would have looked better in the final product if they had not cut it so much and edited it so much to have over-the-shoulder shots and I guess sort of mid-range close-up shots of the two characters as they were talking. If they didn't cut back and forth so much, if they just had kind of had a wider shot of most of the scene, because the actors did a really good job playing off each other, and you don't really get the full effect of that because they cut in these shots that were obviously done like either out of order or outside of the sort of organic moment of the way they delivered the lines initially. It's kind of hard to explain if you haven't been in, you know, movies or TV shows, and I've only been in some very micro budget independent productions, but, you know, I've been involved in producing a film and I've studied film production, and I work as a video editor in part of what I do off channel, and you can just tell that they probably shot the scene in a more fluid way, but then also shot it in kind of a piecemeal way. And when they tried to blend the two different versions of the scene together so that they could have these over-the-shoulder shots, it really just ruined the momentum and looked really bad, and I didn't like it. So I hope they don't do more of that. Anyway, in terms of the narrative, I had a couple of problems with this episode, with these episodes, because, you know, First of all, Sage is supposed to be this crazy genius. And in the past, they've shown her to, in fact, be a crazy genius who can not only predict what's going to happen and sort of get ahead of it, but also to manipulate things to go the way she wants them to go because she's so smart that she knows how everyone's going to react in a given situation or will react to a given, set of stimuli. And so, that's her whole power. But then in these episodes, so many things happen that are, so far anyway, not to Homelander's advantage. And you would think that with her having this ability, if she were really on his side, she wouldn't have allowed those things to happen. It's like she doesn't have the powers that she supposedly has because she doesn't seem to see any of it coming, and the good guys are able to kind of score a couple of different wins. Now, they might say later, well, she let that all happen because she has a bigger plan that, made it so those things had to happen in order for what she's really planning to work out. But on the surface, it seems like she dropped the ball. So I'm going to be interested to see if they explain that, because there's no way to have this character be a super genius and then not foresee all of these things happening. Like, just for example, A-Train deciding ultimately that he would help, which turned the whole escape adventure around and made it work out. So, I mean, like, why didn't she know that was going to happen? So there was that. And then, there's this whole thing of like Homelander's trying to find Starlight and or Butcher or whatever, and he's got like the Deep on it, and the Deep just can't find them. And okay, but why does Homelander have only one person on it? Like, he then wakes up Soldier Boy and says, well, the one guy I had trying to find them couldn't do it. So you have to tell me. There are a million bazillion soups in the world, or however many thousands there are. And you'd think he could find someone to help him, but it's almost like he has no resources. He's the most powerful person on the planet, and he doesn't have the resources to find a couple of people. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Speaking of not making sense, he lays this trap for the boys and so forth, and then he just goes by himself to spring the trap, which, okay, most powerful person on the planet, but like, he didn't have an eye in the sky watching the surrounding area of the camp in question while he was doing what he was doing in the camp. He didn't have any other soups lined up around the camp to prevent the escape. He just thought that his presence was going to be enough to prevent them from pulling off an escape. That doesn't seem very smart. I mean, you'd think he would know enough to bring backup, to have a whole bunch of people there to help ensure that things went the way he wanted it to go. But he doesn't do that. He just shows up alone. Really? I didn't think that made any sense. Then there was the whole bit about they had the worm dig them a tunnel. Okay, but he digs a tunnel into the camp from a spot that's so close to the camp that you can see it through the trees. And it's like, how secure is this camp? How did anyone get that close to the camp? Never mind that Homelander's there and he's setting a trap and all that. Just on a regular day, how would anyone get that close to the camp? Do they not have surveillance? Do they really only have the one fence? Like, it's not ensconced behind fence, behind fence, behind fence. There's no, guard patrols. There's no eye in the sky. I mean, they have a guard tower in the yard, but like, how did they even get that close? It's just ridiculous. So I don't know. I like the show. I like the blood and gore, and I love the acting, and by that I mean specifically Anthony Starr and Carl Urban. Those two just kill it. But narratively speaking, I don't know. There were a few plot holes. I thought a few things that didn't make sense in these premiere episodes. So I don't know. Maybe it's just me. You can tell me what you think in the comments. But either way, I am looking forward to the rest of the season. I'm going to be sad to see it go, but I'm looking forward to the rest of the season. And I will definitely be back to do breakdown and review videos for the other episodes as they're released. For now, I'm going to get out of here. Before I go, I wish you peace and long life.